Hi everyone, I welcome you all to Project Asari's week 5 of the 15-week program. Today we're going to start with Introduction to Economics Foundations. With this, we would have almost completed the first quarter of our 15-week program. So let's dive right into today's session. So first of all, we need to understand before even beginning this topic the importance of economics. So we first really need to understand that economics is literally not just about money and banks or stock markets, because every time people make choices to decide how to use their time, decide how to use their money or effort or skills or resources, they are engaging in economics. So whether it is a student who is deciding how to spend their evening, whether to go to their friend's birthday party or to spend that night studying for the test that is 2 days later so that they can get extra days to revise, or family planning how to allocate their monthly budget, or how a government decides how to spend, or a government deciding as to how much to spend on different sectors healthcare or healthcare or the IT sector or the agriculture sector, etc. So you see, economic thinking really just shapes every decision that our society deals with. So that is why I believe economics is extremely important, because it literally influences all the things and systems and resources that you see around yourselves, like individuals and businesses, governments and societies. It basically shapes how resources are produced, how they are distributed, and then further used. This is something that we'll be tackling at length tomorrow, so you really need not to worry if you do not understand this point. Secondly, to just clarify certain definitions, this is not really important, but I just really wanted you to understand the basic difference between what economics is and what economy is. So economics is the study of how people make choices when resources are limited, and it helps us how individuals, businesses and governments make decisions. Secondly, economy is the system through which people produce, buy, sell and use goods and services. It includes all the people, you and me, businesses, the workers, the governments, the markets, everyone. So just think about it, that economics is the study, it is the subject, and economy is what is being studied. So when you're studying biology, you are studying biology and you're studying the ecosystem, for example, as a core component of what biology is. Again, very basic, really does not have any implications in debate, but you should know it. Just give me a quick thumbs up. Okay. Now, we will be tackling the most basic economics concepts. It should be economic here, but just excuse the mistake. So, I'll just retract it. Yes, so the most basic economic concepts. These are three very basic economic concepts that you must know, so that these are the concepts which are applicable at really molecular, really basic level of anyone who's trying to understand economics for the first time. So first is needs. Needs are essential things, essential sources or resources that are important for the survival and basic well-being. Needs are water, air, sunlight, food, clothes, a home. These are needs, right? Because you actually need them for your survival. Secondly is wants. These are there to improve your comfort, enjoyment or status. For example, you always say that you want a new cloth, you want a new game, you want a new video game, you want a new gadget. You rarely say that you need this gadget unless it is extremely important. For example, if you need a gadget for like your studies or something, that is something you say it is a need. But wants are generally to improve your comfort or status or enjoyment, or for your own enjoyment. They're really not that important as needs are. Lastly, is scarcity. So scarcity is limited resources compared to unlimited human desires. Again, it might sound very abstract right now, but do not worry, there's a whole slide explaining this concept. But just take a note that this is extremely important. Scarcity forces people and societies to make choices. Now, this condition of having limited resources relative to our desire is known as scarcity. That is, there are resources that are less, but what we want is more. So you can say that, just a second. So you can literally say that needs are, so sorry about that. You can say that your needs, your wants are more than your needs, and your wants and needs are more than the resources available in the society. Okay, so this is a very core concept, a concept on which entire economies and the entire subject of economics is based on. I hope you've understood, nothing too difficult. It's just a lot of technical jargon, otherwise the things are really basic. Perfect, thank you. Then why is scarcity such a big problem? Now, scarcity rarely affects a single person. It affects every decision we make, especially every decision that is made by these four systems that I've mentioned here. Individuals, because individuals have limited time, money, and energy to do things. Hence, there's a lot of things that they can miss out on. For example, let's talk about limited time. If I have, for example, if I really like reading, there are millions and billions of books on this planet, but I cannot really read all of those books because there's limited time. I cannot be reading, say, it is inhumanly possible to read, say, 10 books or 20 books a day. Literally, you don't even have that kind of time, and the number that I just spoke is really it is really impossible, right? So you cannot be doing that. I have limited time. Moreover, when you're preparing for a test, you're always thinking that I wish I had more time, but again, that's not how the world works. You have to work within your limited time. Then limited money. Just a second, there is a technical problem, sorry about that. As I was talking about limited money, there's a lot of things that individuals want, but you cannot be having endless money to buy all of those things. So it's really not possible. Come on, just think about it yourself practically. Then limited energy, of course, we're human beings, we have dipping energy levels at all times of the day. So you cannot be expecting yourself to be very energetic through the entire day. Secondly, businesses, limited labor, capital, and raw materials. Again, businesses have to keep note of how their labor is, what is the amount of labor that they're using, how is their capital distributed in different areas in which they're working, and how their raw materials are to be distributed. Again, really important. Governments must decide budgets between competing priorities. If you know, India always releases its budget in February, every year in February. So you must have seen or heard your parents saying how the budget has been distributed between these sectors. The budget there should have been more budget in the education sector, or more budget to the healthcare sector, or maybe more budget to the allocated to agriculture sector, etc. So you see, these are really competing priorities that the government has to deal with on a daily basis, so that they can make decisions which are actually the which actually affect the maximum number of people. Again, let's go back to the concept that we'd already learned in last week. uh, Governments really have to make choices between competing priorities, but then ultimately they have to make decisions which affect the maximum number of people, and a decision that does good or affects the maximum number of people is called utilitarian. UTI utili Okay, sorry about that. It's called utilitarian policy. I hope I'm writing the spellings correctly, but even if not, you know the concept, so you can apply this concept here. Institutions cannot satisfy every demand with available resources. Again, really basic. Again, guys, this is just 4 different areas where scarcity can be seen, and they just have to allocate different resources in such a way so that they're able to sort of make decisions and make such decisions which affect the maximum number of people in a good way. Unlimited wants and limited resources. Again, we as humans our desires continuously grow. We always want something. We are never ever tired. We always want something new. We never ever stop dreaming. We never ever stop asking for anything. And they can only, if there was a world where all human needs would be met, then that would be an ideal world. But in the world that we live in, it does not happen because we have limited resources, and the result is clear: we cannot satisfy every want. Again, very basic, just again technical jargon which has to be kept in mind. Now, unlimited wants, limited resources, and scarcity. Keep these three in mind, and we arrive at the basic central economic problem. Central economic problem means, oh, so sorry. Central economic problem means a problem that affects everybody, a problem that is centralized to everyone, every individual, every community, every government, every country, every city, every state, every system that you can think of. Central in itself means that it is present everywhere, it affects everybody. Even if you see the richest man out there, even if you see the richest country out there, they will be dealing with this economic problem, and that is of unlimited wants. Explained again, we have desires which have no clear point. As one want is satisfied, new wants emerges, creating endless demand for goods and services and opportunities. Limited resources such as land, labor, capital, money, and time exists in finite quantities and cannot satisfy every desire simultaneously. Alternative choices, this is something new here. Now, because resources are scarce, every decision involves choosing one option over the other. Of course, these are scarce. For example, if you go to a shop and you were really looking for a particular jean that you've been wanting for a really long time, but that jean is now not available. So, but getting yourself a jean is really important for you today, because maybe you have to go somewhere, maybe you have a particular party to attend, right, or a particular event to go to. So you will be making an alternative choice and buying a jean which has the same quality and which will satisfy your soul, not as much as that jean would have, but to some extent. So there are many examples that you can think of when you have to make alternative choices between things. For example, the example that I shared in the very beginning when the session began, of you going to a friend's birthday party, or preparing for a test which is 3 days away so that you get extra time to revise. Again, you have to make alternative choices. Now, why does this economic problem exist? Let's see. So I've generated this really interesting image for you all. It should not be very difficult for you to understand, but I'll explain it regardless. Natural limits. Resources such as fertile land, minerals, fresh water, and energy sources are finite and cannot expand indefinitely to match the growing demand. Rising expectations. Economic development often increases people's expectation and aspirations, creating new wants that did not previously exist. For example, if India as an economy is growing, then common people like you and me would want better roads, we would want better healthcare, we would want our standard of living to be increased, because now we're living in a better economy. But unfortunately, things like that do not really exist, because we have rising expectations, and the government has to make has competing priorities which must be kept in mind. Population growth, again, there's no explanation needed here. India is the biggest example of how increasing population can literally take away everything from you. Unequal distribution, these are the two problems that were discussed in the very first knowledge building session, that is problems around the world. So I am really not going to waste time and explain you, but you can definitely relate this to the week 3's session, where we discussed um, how there are unequal distribution of resources around the world, because of which people have to make such alternative choices. Competing priorities, different groups in society value different outcomes, meaning resources must be constantly divided among competing goals and interests. Again, something I've explained at length in the previous slides as well. What are the areas then that are most affected? Healthcare, education, employment, infrastructure, environmental, social, welfare, public services. Again, guys, I know it might sound really difficult right now, or you might think it's all technical jargon, but believe me, you've been reading about such problems every day in your school curriculum. You listen about these problems everywhere whenever your parents are discussing something. So it's really easy. It's just that you need to understand there's a clear pattern going on around in the sessions that we've been doing, and you can see that there's a lot of connections that can be made in from the previous sessions and in these sessions. So please do not worry. After the session ends, just go home and have a quick view at these slides, and it will be as clear as crystal. Okay, who cares about these problems, right? Individuals. Economics helps people make decisions about spending, saving, education, careers, and the use of their time and resources. Businesses. Economic principles guide decision making in terms of pricing, investment, production, hiring, expansion, competition within markets. Governments, policymakers rely on economics to allocate budgets, already explained at length. Institutions, schools, unis, hospitals, charities, and international organizations use economic thinking to prioritize limited resources and maximize impact. Society as a whole affects living standards, opportunity, public service, inequality, and the overall functioning of communities and nation. Guys, did you see that there's a certain pattern here, that all institutions, all individuals, all businesses have to always keep in mind the central economic problem. In fact, there's this really nice line that you can learn by heart, that central economic problem exists because unlimited wants must be satisfied using limited resources, making choice unavoidable, that is alternative choices. So all of the things that we've discussed today have one single stem, that is there's a lot of wants, there's a lot of demand from our side, but the resources that are out there in the environment, in the society, are limited as compared to what we actually want. You can see, hence we have to make alternative choices in such a way that we're able to satisfy not only our needs, but also we're able to have the maximum good for the people around us, that is a utilitarian society. Again, nothing too difficult. I hope you've understood everything. Now I'll be stop presenting and asking you for questions. Thank you.